Support for Carolina Business Review is provided by Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina. Please visit us at southcarolinablues.com. And Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries.
Outside this current hyperbolic cloud of political discussion, issues like funding new ideas, finding sound places and optimistic places to deploy capital, and if there is what an economics call now an extended economic expansion due to White House policy, how does that strategically play into many people's near-term plans? Thank you for joining us and supporting the most widely watched source of Carolina business and public policy. I am Chris William. This program, seen each week across the Carolinas for more than 25 years, we'll ask our panel about these issues and other issues, and later on, someone who may be a serial entrepreneur, at least he's heading in that direction, Get Spiffy CEO, Scot Wingo.
Major funding also by Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. The Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. And by Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. On this edition of Carolina Business Review, Grady Johnson from SC Biz News, Louis Foreman from Enventys, and special guest Scot Wingo, CEO of Get Spiffy.
Hello, welcome again to our program. Louis, good to have you here. Welcome.
It's great to be here.
Grady, thanks for driving up from the low country. Yeah. Grady, let's start from you. So both sessions in North and South Carolina, or both General Assemblies are in session in the Carolinas. And hot issues include transportation, pension funding, education, to name just probably the top three. Transportation. So the House and the Senate have both made overtures and proposals that now is the time to move on a gas tax. Let's raise it by 10 cents over the next 5 years, and that's just roughly the plan. You've got a new governor in South Carolina, Henry McMaster, who seemed to be sympathetic to raising the gas tax, but apparently not. Just came out against it.
It just came out. Things may have changed. I don't know a lot of the details because this was very recent to me coming here on the show this morning. So I just, I don't really know the details of that, but something has to be done. There's a tremendous amount of frustration. So I'm not sure if this is just some political maneuvering or exactly what's happening, but certainly everyone's eyes are on the legislature this year and trying to solve this problem.
This idea of where we are in the economy, Louis, economic morale, this is the fourth longest economic expansion, in the last 140 years or so, but people say, but I'm still not feeling it. I don't see it. There is evidence of it. Do you get the sense that, when you talk to not just entrepreneurs and small businesses, what do you hear from them? What's the sense?
I think there's a certain amount of cautious optimism, right? People feel like there's good times, but they're worried that, the shoe's going to drop at any minute, that things are going to change. And so people are plugging along. We're seeing business startups, businesses are doing well, but there's still that fear that everything can change rather rapidly.
You think that's a hangover from 08, 09?
I think that these periods of boom and bust have become shorter and more frequent, and I think people are just generally worried that the good times can't go on forever.
You two are in the heart and the soul of small business and startups and the digital corridor and what's the Low Country in Charleston, and Louis, what you've done with Enventys, and just the serial entrepreneur kind of genre that's going on. Grady, what's the sense this time in this part of the business cycle with the startups, with the new companies, with the small companies? Are they as optimistic as they ever have been versus the last cycle?
I think so. I'm seeing just a whole new generation of young entrepreneurs coming into their prime now, and it's really interesting to see. And because I live down in the Charleston area, I can speak, I think pretty accurately about what's going on in Charleston, and it is an unbelievable transformation of the business community down there to this whole sort of entrepreneurial soup that you just didn't see. It usually was food and beverage kind of startups, and then there were some other things. Now with software companies like Blackbaud, are now spinning off lots of other companies that are coming out of that. So it's really amazing. It's amazing.
As Louis described it, do you think there's a sense of cautious optimism?
I think somewhat, but Charleston, because we've had so many big economic development wins, and because so many people are moving to the area, it's just wide open. It's unbelievable. So exciting.
Yeah, Louis, could you describe the Carolinas that way when it comes to crowdfunding and just building a critical mass around ideas and momentum?
Yeah, I think innovation right now is driving economies, and the resources today to innovate with are so much less expensive than they've ever been. So you've got this surge of entrepreneurship, of innovation. Things are changing, and if you're not looking to disrupt an industry, you're going to be disrupted yourself.
So where are they finding funding sources?
Well, there's always the traditional ways to fund a business, the friends and family route, but crowdfunding, like you mentioned, is becoming an incredibly efficient and effective way, not only to validate a market, but also to raise the capital necessary to launch a business.
Grady?
Well, I also see, the ecosystems are beginning to form, and I think one of the things that is important to talk about is everyone is so focused on the success stories, but what really is happening and needs to happen is the ecosystem needs to exist to allow these companies to fail. So that when they fail, those founders and those folks are not turned into Soylent Green. They go somewhere else and do other things, right? And so you have to have the ecosystem available there to pick those folks back up and they can kind of pick themselves up and go again and do it again and again. And every time, every repetition they have, every failure they have, makes them a better either entrepreneur or employer. Or an employee of an entrepreneur. Right?
Well, that's a good way to put it. And Louis, you got a neat opinion about a lot of things, and I don't mean it sounds kind of weird, but so how do we sell it? All the chambers of commerce and all the towns, they do such a good job in being boosters for the business in that particular town, but doesn't seem like we celebrate the failures. And isn't that where we learn?
Yeah, I think Charlotte in general is very risk averse. It's a city that was born on relatively low risk industries, banking, healthcare, energy. And so failure is frowned upon. And we don't celebrate it here. We don't celebrate the successes well enough. But failure is looked at as a bad thing, and you wear a scarlet letter if you fail. And so that's cultural, and that's got to change, because the only way innovation really happens, the only way startups really take root and grow is you got to fail every once in a while. Because if you're not failing, you're not reaching far enough, you're not taking enough chances, and you're not really looking for those game-changing innovations that can disrupt an industry.
What's the percentage of startups that don't make it? It's fairly high.
Yeah, it is relatively high. But at the same time, failure is a learning process, right? So you learn from those failures and you adapt or you pivot or you find that there's maybe a better industry that you should be in.
Do you have a magic bullet in Charleston where you fail forward, celebrate the failures?
Not really. I think the ecosystem has to mature much more than where it is now. And it's just, I think the point that Louis and I are trying to make is that the more this happens, the larger this ecosystem becomes, the more part of it is recognized as failure. And what I see in mentoring lots of entrepreneurs is they fail for a really old-fashioned reason, and that is they don't know how to sell. and you know, and there, because there's great ideas, super, you know, they're working 80 hours a week, and they've got all of that going, smart. They just, you know, and mostly young folks or young companies, they just don't have that good old-fashioned, you know, Willy Loman sales gene, you know, and so they think, oh, you send a bunch of emails out, or we build a website and people come buy our product.
Right.
But what really has to happen, and I think where the old-fashioned business communities that you were describing, chambers of commerce and whatever, that's where those folks can get engaged with these startup companies and inject some of the stuff that's just needs to be baked into company culture, which is who's going to sell this stuff, right?
Are you optimistic? Do current sources of funding, and let's call crowdfunding out, like crowdfunding? Do you find that crowdfunding is more patient than more traditional ways to get funding?
Well, it's definitely more patient. I mean, when you look at these crowdfunding platforms like Indiegogo and Kickstarter, people who are backing campaigns are waiting months, in some cases years, and in some cases never even receive what they actually purchased. It's quite astonishing that there's a market out there where you can buy something and there's no guarantee that you'll ever receive it. But there is a segment of the population that wants to be on the cutting edge. They want to try something new. They want to be the first to adopt something before everybody else. It's still a relatively small percentage of the overall purchasing that's happening in the economy, but it shows that there's this appetite for innovation. People want something new.
Yeah. Gentlemen, thank you. Appreciate it. We're going to bring our guest on the program. I'm sure Scot Wingo will have something to say about startups.
Sure.
Coming up on our program is Bill Kobe. You know, North Carolina, like South Carolina, has had a debate about education for a while now, not just funding, but how to deploy current federal policy and how to make sure that kids are in fact graduating. Bill Kobe is the chair of the North Carolina Board of Education. He will be here again. And then also coming up, call it his exit interview. He is retiring this year. Dr. Jeffrey Lacker is the president of the Federal Reserve's 5th District. That's the Mid-Atlantic states, of course, North and South Carolina. Dr. Lacker will also be back on this program. Our guest became more widely known in business leadership circles as the founder and executive chairman of Morrisville, North Carolina-based Channel Advisor, but now bringing to bear the same talent to get Spiffy. It's an app and it's a service that allows customers to request an on-demand car wash and aggregates car care-related services. We welcome Get Spiffy CEO Scot Wingo. Say that 5 times fast. Scott, good to have you on the program. Scott, where did you come up with this idea? I mean, we all see these guys in parking decks, guys and gals that are washing cars during the workday. Mm-hmm. You just figured they needed to be aggregated, need to have an association, or what was the thought?
Yeah, so at Channel Advisor, it's an e-commerce company. We help retailers sell on eBay, Amazon. So I had a front row seat at e-commerce being born. And I had invested in a couple of car washes, physical tunnel-based car washes. And what led to Spiffy was I had my first Uber experience, kind of 2012, and that was a big aha moment for me when I was used to pressing a button on the phone and having product come 2 days later, but now you could press a button on the phone and a car shows up 5 minutes later and can take you wherever you want to go. It's pretty amazing that So then, kind of, if you look at the data, I think the phone becomes the remote control for your life, and people are pretty used to it from social networking and buying products. I think services are all going to go digital. So I had all this kind of stewing around and had the car wash, so started doing a series of experiments. The first one we did was we had 2 mobile vans we would run out of our car wash, and that did really well. People loved that more than coming and sitting for an hour while we washed their car in more of a detailed.
Did you make more revenue on the van service?
We did, yeah. But and that was weekends and evenings, which is kind of the pattern there. So then in 2014, we just decided to do an experiment. We came up with a brand, Spiffy, and we came up with an app and just put it out there. It's like any startup, there's good news, bad news. The good news was it was very popular. The other interesting news was people wanted their car washed at work, and this was very foreign to us because as car wash operators, it's the opposite. It makes obvious sense in hindsight because that's when it's most convenient and when your car is most idle. Your car is sitting there idle for 8 hours a day while you're at work. So then, we're like, okay, that's interesting. But then the problem was all these property managers, like, you had a lot of them on your show, like Highwoods and Spectrum. Right. They would actually say, we don't allow this. And we said, why? And they had 4 reasons. They'd say, all detailers are sketchy. The vans look like we don't want them driving around Class A office space. They're uninsured. And then the biggest one was environmental concerns, that essentially it's a chemical spill that gets left in the parking lot. So instead of kind of taking an Uber model where we aggregated folks, we decided we had to kind of provide the whole service, more of a Starbucks kind of a model. We had to kind of like elevate the whole industry to another level, kind of like baristas did for making coffee. So we employ all our folks, we train them 100 hours. They have extensive background checks. Our vans are kind of bright blue and they have a penguin on them, so it kind of is a little bit more disarming than a dirty white van that looks like it's from, been through, we call them Fallujah vans. We have a really big insurance policy. And then the biggest innovation is we started working on the chemicals and the amount of water we use. When you wash a car at home, it uses about 100 gallons through your hose, even if you have a nozzle. We're down to kind of sub 10 gallons of water on our usage. A physical car wash is usually 20 to 25. But even that wasn't enough. So what we did is we invented a mat. So we put every car on a mat, and it's like a little bathtub for your car. So it sticks out 4 feet around the vehicle. The water hits that mat. So first of all, we bring the water. We wash your vehicle, and then we take all the water back with us and we reclaim it. Once we did that, some of the property managers got really excited and they said, what you've created is a zero cost amenity for all our tenants. And then it really took off from there. So right now we're in Raleigh, Charlotte, Atlanta, and Los Angeles.
Grady?
Scott, you probably heard us talking about entrepreneurism and earlier. Describe your startup phase. I think you were right on the edge of the research triangle when you started. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit how was that helpful or not at all, or is it just a location thing?
Yeah, so this is my 4th company, and I'm based out of Research Triangle Park. And what I love about the Triangle and even the Carolinas, and I'm from Aiken, South Carolina, so shout out to all the South Carolinians. And I'm a Gamecock. I know you have Clemson ties, so we won't get into that. But what I love about RTP is the input to a startup is smart people, and the universities we have here in the Carolinas, I think that's the fuel that kind of keeps startup things going. So what's exciting is along the way, we've said, oh, let's go hire a CTO, and boom, NC State, talk to 10 folks, hire a CTO. It's to do that in another region would be near impossible. So that's what's really nice about it, and know a lot of people in the Bay Area. You can do that kind of thing, but it's super expensive and it requires you to raise $20-30 million to go hire those kind of folks that here in the Carolinas we can get for more normal salaries. So I think that's the really big thing that feeds into any startup.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, well, Scott, I commend you on your business. And, they say that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And with technology today and the abundance of these resources, it's really easy to knock off a business plan. What intellectual property do you deploy to really differentiate yourself from the competition? And what's that barrier of entry to keep people from taking market share away from you?
Yeah, that's a good question. The question I get a lot of times that I kind of ties into that is, okay, you did a software company and now you're washing cars. Why would you do that? And it's interesting because when we started ChannelAdvisor, we had to raise $90 million to buy servers. And that was our huge competitive advantage because we'd have competitors. Cyber Monday would come along and they would all fail and we would survive because we had racks and racks of servers. That benefit in software has gone away with cloud computing, as you know. So I can go and lease as much computing infrastructure as I want for like $300 a month. Mm-hmm. So I actually think there's less competitive advantage in software than there ever has been. So I was kind of mulling that over. And what I love about Spiffy is the physicality of it. 2 really smart computer science guys at Stanford aren't going to want to go have 40 vans and 60 technicians that are, that they're going to have to employ and recruit and that kind of thing. So I think the physicality, oddly enough, is our competitive advantage. The other one is if we can get into a Wells Fargo tower in downtown Charlotte or a Cisco in RTP, and we can get them. Part of what we do is we install key exchange systems, so which are these physical boxes, so that you don't have to talk to a human to get the keys. We put up signage and we get them set on a regular schedule. So every Tuesday we're at Citrix, Wednesday we're at Cisco, and Wednesday or Thursday we're at Wells Fargo Tower. We become their habit. And it's a very physical lock-in at these businesses that we become an amenity. It would be very hard to replace us at the scale and kind of the physicality of what we have.
So amenity and discretionary spending, Scott, if the market turns, what kind of hit? How do you model out how you're going to take a hit on revenue?
Yeah, it's hard. In our physical car washes, what we found was people, they actually didn't decline much. People still needed to wash their car, and it was kind of one of the things they spent money on. If you look at other kind of convenience-oriented services, Uber was born after the recession, but Amazon Prime was still relatively young. It was 3 years old. Prime actually surged during that period. There's research that shows during the recession of 08, 09, people, their reactions were very, very different. The most normal reaction was to go very value-oriented and kind of spend less money. But a whole another half of the population decided that they would really kind of value their time more, and they would outsource more things in their life. That's why we have like 65 million Amazon Prime users now. Uber's like a $6 or $7 billion company. And then you have these things like Instacart. This on-demand economy is really thriving, and it's because people really love convenience in their life, so they can spend time doing what they want to do.
Yeah, as an entrepreneur, and as a serial entrepreneur, and I mean that in the best possible way, Scott, you got to have your eyes on the prize, so to speak, your egress out of this. You were a channel advisor, not there anymore. You've got this now. What's the egress? How do you know you've hit the mark and it's time to sell or find a PE group to buy it? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I get that question a lot, and I've always just like really focused on the business, and exits will come along.
Yeah.
So I think that this on-demand economy is going to be really big. We just saw Snapchat go public, so the IPO window is open for more of these kind of not profitable, kind of risky kind of IPOs. So I think if we could get Uber out there, Instacart, there's Airbnb. Those are kind of the anchors of this on-demand economy. I think that's interesting. I think Amazon's watching this space very closely. Amazon's interesting. They think in 10-year cycles, and I think they're kind of like, well, in 10 years when we own everything in products, what do we do next? So I think Alexa ties into that interestingly. Someday you'll order services from Alexa. So I think there's it's going to be a really big space. I think it's actually bigger than e-commerce, probably 4 times as big as e-commerce, because when you look at GDP is 20% goods and 80% services. So kind of mathematically, I think not all these services will become digital, but I think enough do that it's going to be a really, really big space. And so I don't really worry about that. I just kind of worry about us executing and how do we deliver the best customer experience possible, and then the other stuff should work itself out.
Great.
We all know that company culture is so important. As a startup, it's the thing you live every day, right? As you think about scaling this thing up, how are you thinking about taking that company culture and sort of exporting that out to some of these other farther flung operations? I know you're in Atlanta, but suppose you get well out.
Yeah, we just opened Los Angeles, so this is near and dear to my heart.
How do you make that? How do you make that the same cool place?
Yeah, and so I try to study what other companies have done, and the other companies I think so. At Channel Advisor, it's a lot easier because you're a software company, right? So everyone's kind of not the same, but relatively similar, and kind of professional salespeople. But we have kind of a technician and then software people at Spiffy. So there's a wide range there, and I look at what Amazon has done, and then Starbucks as well, where you want to make everyone part of the team. So for example, I don't know if you know or not, but at Starbucks baristas, they have a career path where they have stock ownership, they can have management career. They have a career path just like anyone else. So we've taken a lot of that and adopted it. I try to copy whatever I can and not hit my head up against the wall. And I really admire a lot of what Starbucks has done. So we're copying and kind of taking some of the things they've done there and doing that. And that's how we do it. But I also have a golden rule that's kind of like, make the place you work at, you've created it where you would want to work yourself. And it seems obvious, but a lot of people don't do that. So, transparency, over communicating to people, sharing the vision, those are all things that have served me really well that I know I like when I've worked somewhere in the places I didn't like that lacked, hey, Scott, do this. Why? Well, I don't know. The boss said to do it. That kind of stuff really rubs today's employee wrong. So making sure you don't do those kinds of things is part of the culture.
We have less than 2 minutes left.
Yeah, well, so Scott, one way to grow a business is obviously to get more customers, but another approach is to sell more to the existing customers you have right now. Is the car wash the gateway to a more intimate relationship with the customer, and what else can you sell to them?
That's very insightful. So our customers are trusting us with their second most valuable asset, and sometimes their most valuable asset. And so what we want to do is build off that trust. And we probably have 1,000 ideas. So part of my job is to kind of say let's pick a couple. And I always ask customers too. So what our customers are asking for the most, one is inspections. So I hate to do the inspection thing myself, the car inspection thing. There's a whole government piece there that you talked about rules and regulations earlier. I don't know if we'll ever kind of be able to do mobile inspections. So that one's kind of got a little bubble around it. But then the second one is oil change, and then another one is fueling. This is kind of funny. People have a visceral reaction to the fueling. But imagine you go to work and we can wash your car, change the oil, and fill it with gas whenever you want. Some people love that idea. Some people kind of say, wow, I enjoy my trip to the convenience store and I want to get that candy bar when I'm there, kind of thing. But those are kind of things that if we can make our customers' lives easier and extend that trust they've given us and add more to it, we have a lot of ideas around that.
Well done. And not only that, but you nailed our timing on the show because we're actually done. So Scott, thank you for being on our program. Best of luck. We're going to be watching this closely. Please come back.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Good to see you, Scott. Louis, thanks for running the red eye into Charlotte so we can get you on the program.
Glad to be here.
And thanks for running the red eye from Charleston.
My
Good
pleasure.
to see you. Until next week, I'm Chris William. Good night.
Major funding for Carolina Business Review was provided by the Duke Endowment, a private foundation enriching communities in the Carolinas through higher education, healthcare, rural churches, and children's services. Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina. Who's responsible for rising healthcare costs? Join us and many others in a candid discussion at letstalkcost.com. Grant Thornton. Operating in more than 100 countries, our tax, audit, and advisory professionals specialize in helping companies unlock their growth potential. Novant Health, bringing you world-class technology, clinicians, and care when and where you need it. Sunoco, a global manufacturer of consumer and industrial packaging products and provider of packaging services with more than 300 operations in 35 countries. Blue Cross Blue Shield of South Carolina. Please visit us at southcarolinablues.com. And by viewers like you. Thank you. Promotional consideration provided by Business North Carolina Magazine. For more information, visit carolinabusinessreview.org.